Before the creation of the United Nations organization, world was being devastated by wars, especially two world wars that had confiscated more than 100 million lives in all over the world. That massacres paved the way for a global organization, and world leaders became serious in their efforts to prevent wars and to maintain peace in the world. So, the United Nations was created in 1945, aiming to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, protection of human rights, maintenance of international peace and security, and to uphold international law. Since its creation, 7 decades have been passed. A lot of things are there on its credit, and still it needs to do many things, and on many issues it did not get success. Since the Jewish state was established in 1948, lives of native people have been changed, and that started a tussle of power between Israeli and Palestinians that led to numerous wars, and Palestinian people are continuously asking for a right of self-determination and are fighting against ethnic cleansing by Israeli government. United Nations Security Council have condemned several times Israeli unlawful occupation on Palestinian lands, but it could not resolve the issue till today. Kashmir dispute is also a burning issue. United Nations has presented many resolutions on this flashpoint in South Asia between two nuclear states and has a clear view of right of self-determination of people of Kashmir, but still it is unable to resolve the issue according to its resolutions. Civil war raged out in 2014 in Yemen between internationally accepted government and Iran-backed Houthis. That issue worsened when Saudi-led armed forces intervened in 2014. The United Nations has failed to send humanitarian aid, food and drugs to civilians facing blockade imposed in the country. In 2017, Myanmar launched a major military crackdown on the Muslim ethnic minority, killing almost 24,000 civilians and forcing more than 700,000 others, including women and children, to flee to Bangladesh, according to OIDA. United Nations Security Council could not manage the issue because of its weaknesses. China stood behind Myanmar government and was blocking efforts of United Nations Security Council. Peaceful protesters had to face brutal crackdown in Syria in 2011, as the government said they would relentlessly fight terrorist groups, referring to pro-democracy protesters. As protest changes into an uprising, government of Syria released Al-Qaeda members which spread Daesh gradually in Syria. United Nations Security Council tried to pass several resolutions to address the conflict, but Russia utilized its veto power at least a dozen times to protect its ally Assad. In Somalia, civil war raged out between two rival clans since the ouster of dictator Mohammed Said. United Nations peacekeeping mission was set up in 1992 to facilitate humanitarian aid to people but did not get success because of many factors. These factors cannot explain the United Nations, although there are some failures, but United Nations has done a lot for the sake of the world and for succeeding generations. In 1987, United Nations Environmental Programme sponsored a conference of 24 nations to pledge to take actions against the deterioration of the ozone layer at the time. After almost 5 years of talk, the group molded the Montreal Protocol, a treaty to reduce the emissions of chlorofluorocarbons on a broad scale. To control the prevention of weapons of mass destruction, United Nations did efforts that worked out in the form of a treaty in 1968 on non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, providing vaccination for 58% of children in the world, helping out 30 million women a year with maternal health efforts, protecting human rights with 80 treaties and declarations. United Nations has performed numerous humanitarian, environmental and peacekeeping undertakings, including providing food to 90 million people in over 75 countries, assisting more than 34 million refugees. The World Health Organization, a UN agency, led the global effort to eradicate the disease by 1980. After almost 13 years of an immunization campaign, the WHO declared smallpox ended from the world.